The 1970s were supposed to be the death of American muscle. Gas prices were soaring, regulations were tightening, and performance was becoming a dirty word. But in a small shop on Long Island, one man was about to turn an economy car into something that would absolutely destroy everything it came up against. This is the story of Kong, the economy 454 powered Vega that didn't just compete with muscle cars, it demolished them. But before we get into this incredible story of the 454 powered Vega, take a second to hit that subscribe button and click that bell. Now, hot rodding began with a pure mission: raw power where it didn't belong. No tricks, just engineering guts. And in 1973, Motion Performance in Long Island was about to take this idea to the extreme. Chevy had already dropped an aluminum 302 V8 into their economy Vega, making it quick enough to run low 14s. But Joel Rosen, after years of building fire-breathing muscle cars, saw these tired Vegas everywhere, begging for something more. His answer? Stuff Chevy's massive 454 big block where it was never meant to go. They named it Kong, one of the 70s boldest muscle car conversions, built right when everyone else was giving up on performance. But before Kong could terrorize the streets, it would have to survive something far more threatening than any stoplight showdown, and that was the iron fist of federal regulation. The 1970s brought dark times for performance cars in America. The Clean Air Act of 1970, backed by the EPA and DOT, had begun strangling power from factory engines. Manufacturers were rolling out neutered motors and heavy energy-absorbing bumpers. Then came 1973, and with it, the oil embargo, pushing gas prices to new heights and threatening to end the era of high performance entirely. Yet, on Sunrise Highway in Baldwin, Long Island, Motion Performance saw opportunity where others saw the end. For nearly a decade, they had been building an army of big block-powered machines. Corvettes, Chevelles, Camaros, Novas, each one more powerful than the last. The Chevrolet Vega, GM's answer to the fuel crisis, had been on the market for 4 years. Thousands of these economy cars prowled the streets, their weak 4-cylinder engines struggling to keep up with traffic. Motion had already proven they could transform these humble machines, and their 350 small block conversions had shown the Vega's potential. But as the world of performance cars seemed to be dying, Joel Rosen wasn't thinking something smaller. He was thinking bigger. So despite the fuel crisis, despite the regulations, despite everything pointing toward the end of high performance, customers kept calling. They didn't want just any engine swap. They wanted the biggest, most powerful engine Chevrolet made, the 454 cubic inch big block V8, the same monster motor found in Corvettes and Chevelles, but in a Vega. With the battle lines drawn between performance and regulation, Motion Performance was about to attempt the impossible, and it all started with a phone that wouldn't stop ringing. This was the kind of idea that could only come from the twilight of an era. But this idea of the big block Vega didn't start with Joel Rosen. It came from his customers. Ever since Motion started swapping 350 engines into Vegas, the request for something bigger had been relentless. People kept calling, asking about the possibility of a big block conversion. But this wasn't just about stuffing a bigger engine into a smaller car. Motion Performance was working with what amounted to a Dixie cup, never meant for the girth or output of a V8 engine, let alone an all-iron Mark IV big block. The surgery and chassis upgrades needed would pose giant warranty problems and legal liabilities. None of Rosen's usual dealership contacts wanted anything to do with it. The logistics were painful. A stock Vega had a 53.2 to 46.8% weight bias. The aluminum 4-cylinder engine weighed just 285 pounds. The iron big block, a massive 685 pounds. Adding that much weight over the front wheels would transform the car's entire character. But Rosen was certain of the market. As soon as he knew people would buy it, he decided to build the car and offer a complete kit from the first prototype. The decision to build Kong was made. Now came the real challenge, and that was figuring out how to squeeze Chevrolet's largest engine into its smallest car, a feat of engineering that would push the limits of what was possible. The size of the big block created immediate problems. Standard side engine mounts wouldn't work, there simply wasn't enough room. Rosen's solution came from an unlikely source, the 1962 Corvette. He created a saddle-type front engine mount similar to those in early Corvettes, with the back half supported by a standard V8 Vega tubular crossmember repositioned an inch further back. The firewall required cutting around the bell housing just to make the engine fit. A custom radiator core was fabricated, paired with a massive Flexi-Light fan designed for air-conditioned applications. The breadth of the engine and tube headers forced Motion to think creatively about placement. For the transmission, Rosen used what was available, a Borg-Warner 4-speed with a 2.64-to-1 first gear. Though he admitted a Turbo 400 would have been the better choice, the deadline for the prototype didn't allow for ideal component selection. The suspension received equally serious attention. Motion replaced the stock front springs with their own private stock featuring thicker wire diameter. Coney adjustable shocks were added at all four corners. The rear setup included hijacker air shocks and Motion's own traction devices replacing both upper and lower control arms. To handle the power, the stock discs needed drilling for a 3 3/4-inch 5-lug pattern to accept the 14-inch Krager SS hoops. Massive N50-15 Goodyear tires were mounted out back, making the F70 14 front tires look tiny in comparison. A narrow 12-bolt rear end completed the drivetrain, matched with a shorter prop shaft. The exhaust posed another challenge. Limited ground clearance meant side pipes exiting just below the driver's head, a stark contrast to the fully undercar systems of the 350 conversions. The engineering was complete. Kong was built, but no one could have predicted what would happen when this 454-powered monster finally hit the streets. The combination of brutal big block power and light weight created something unprecedented. At just 3,100 pounds, and that's light by muscle car standards, with the solid cam 454 and aggressive 4.56-to-1 rear-end gearing, the Motion Vega became a stoplight terror. Despite being completely untuned, the engine's response was, and this is in the words of those who drove it, devastating to the psyche. The car could be accelerated smoothly from rest in every gear except high, but at full throttle, it would break the tires loose through every gear, even with those massive N50-15 Goodyears out back. The close ratio transmission and low gearing meant that every shift brought another opportunity for tire smoking theatrics. Real-world testing revealed both brilliance and compromise. The manual steering and dramatic front weight bias meant carefully cornering was essential with the constant threat of massive understeer. In traffic, 30 minutes was all it took for the cooling system to protest, spilling water in hot weather. This wasn't due to an inadequate radiator, but the problem was lack of airflow around the cramped engine bay. The side pipe exhaust, necessitated by limited ground clearance, filled the cabin with the big block's roar. When cruising straight and steady, the Motion Vega felt as controlled as its small block siblings. But prod the throttle, and Kong would remind you exactly why it earned its name. Though never officially timed due to its rushed assembly, estimates suggested the car would be capable of high 11-second quarter-mile times with slicks and proper traction. In 1973, these were numbers that would embarrass most purpose-built muscle cars, and this was from a converted economy car. Kong had proven itself a stoplight warrior, but its tire-shredding glory days were numbered. The government was watching, and they weren't happy about what they saw. The Motion Vega's legacy would be complicated by forces beyond hot rodding. The Department of Justice, in their crusade against modified high-performance cars, discovered the Kong project. Looking to set a precedent, they moved to shut it down. Motion Performance received a hammerlock, a cease and desist order accompanied by a $500 fine. The stipulation that followed would change everything. All modified new vehicles would be export only. Future Motion creations would find their homes far from American soil, smoking their big fat tires in places like Puerto Rico, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. So how many Motion Vegas actually hit the streets? Rosen mentioned there were 3 of them and perhaps a 4th. When asked about pricing, he paused for a long moment before revealing they started at $4,000 and could reach $6,000 or even $7,000. Today, their whereabouts remain unknown. Motion offered their conversion in various forms. The primary kit included the essentials, motor mounts and headers. The deluxe package added hoses, belts, pulleys, and those special front springs. Options included the heavy-duty cooling core, narrowed 12-bolt rear end, and shorter prop shaft. The car represented both defiance and excess, a time when hot rodders faced increasing regulation and economic pressures with pure audacity. While Chevrolet's engineers were content with their aluminum 302 V8 Vega running 13-second quarter miles, Motion Performance pushed beyond what was practical or perhaps even sane. Today, when asked about Kong, Rosen simply says, "I hate to think about that car now." But his creation stands as more than just another hot rod. It marked the end of an era when small shops could take new cars and transform them into fire-breathing monsters. Consequences be damned. The feds had spoken, but Motion Performance's story wasn't over. As the muscle car era faded into history, Kong would leave one final mark on American performance as a testament to an era that would never come again. The timing of the Motion Vega's demise was symbolic. The 1970 Clean Air Act, backed by the EPA and DOT, had already begun transforming the automotive landscape. Factory engines were being strangled, energy-absorbing bumpers were getting heavier, high-performance options were disappearing from order sheets. But this didn't bend Rosen one bit. Even after Kong, he continued dropping small block V8s in his Super Vegas for 3 years. The spirit of hot rodding couldn't be killed by regulation alone, yet the game had changed. The warranty problems and legal liabilities posed by such radical conversions meant the days of the turnkey modified muscle car were numbered. As for Kong itself, perhaps somewhere in some distant corner of the world, one of these tire-shredding Vegas still prowls the streets. A reminder of a time when hot rodders faced the changing world not by backing down, but by doubling down. After all, as period road testers asked, who would mess with it? Kong may have been short-lived, but it left an unforgettable mark on automotive history. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and let us know in the comments which forgotten muscle car you want to see next. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.